Hi, I'm Adolph Doolin, and I am the king of soul food.
The king of soul food.
I have been in the restaurant business for the last 37 years. And in Los Angeles, I have specialized in soul food. We have the two locations, both in Inglewood, and my son has his own location on Crenshaw Boulevard in LA.
Nice. So, what we're here for today is to document a bit of your experience in becoming the king of soul food and in starting, all these businesses in Los Angeles. What were some of your inspirations? What are some funny stories? We'd love to just capture the oral history and also create some material for the future, a cookbook, a history board to be displayed in all of the Doolin's locations. So that's our goal today, and just to get to know you.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's see, where do I start?
So where did you grow up?
In Oklahoma.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's home.
Hmm.
Grew up in a log cabin back there that my father built when they had the run for land in Oklahoma in 1889. And those people who competed could get as much as 160 acres. And that's where I grew up, in this log cabin that my grandfather built.
Wow. So what was it like growing up on a log cabin or a farm in Oklahoma?
I was happy because I didn't know that I was poor, and I didn't know that we were having any problems or anything, because the food was right there for you, because we were farming hens, pigs, cows, beef. Everything was right there for us. And we had to farm the land in order to make cash money. And then we would work for some of the neighbors, some of the white neighbors, in order to earn some extra money.
Wow. So what were your mother and father like?
What were they like? Sweet, hard-working. I've seen my dad with his shirt so wet with sweat that it would fall, salt would be forming around the collar and everything. My mother never had a job. She was a housewife, and she stayed home taking care of chickens, a garden, and all of the things that a farmer's wife would do. She got to the 12th grade, but she never did get any further education, but she did a damn good job of what she was doing.
Sounds like a job to me. So when did you start cooking, become interested in cooking?
Oh, I used to have to help my mother to cook when I was a little boy growing up, because she had been injured in an accident. So I had to help around the house. Nothing heavy, of course, but help her out. I was like her cook's assistant in the kitchen. And that started out when I was, 6, 7, 8, or something like that. That's how I got my start.
Really? What was something that you remember cooking early on, assisting with the cooking?
Early on was probably fried chicken. Fried chicken. I think so. Yes.
Nice. Did you have brothers and sisters growing up?
No, not anymore. I am the patriarch of the Doolin family.
I see. Cool. So, are there any other relatives that were around that time that had an influence on you and cooking?
Other than coming out to the house to eat, when I say out to the house, I lived 25 miles from Oklahoma City on a farm. It was a dirt road going up to the house. And we didn't have any electricity or bathroom facilities at that time. And so no, I had other brothers and sisters, but they were so much older than I was. They were already gone.
I see. What was the, if you don't mind sharing, accident that your mother
Car
was
accident.
involved in? Oh, car accident.
Yeah, somebody ran into them on the highway.
I see. So then, What happened? How did you get from Oklahoma to Los Angeles?
Okay. I graduated from high school in Luther, Oklahoma, and had to ride the school bus to the school, and my daddy drove the school bus. Well, at the end of the 12th grade, I entered the local college, Langston University, which was an all-black college. And I put in 4 years there. And then I was drafted for 2 years into the Army. And after I got out of the Army, I got a job at the post office for a while. I worked as a social worker. And then I started figuring I had 5 children, and I wasn't making enough money to send them to college. I was going to have 3 in there at the same time. So I started looking at something else to get into, like an entrepreneurial type business. I looked at liquor stores, looked at gas stations, I looked at a house cleaning service. And then I thought of what is it that most people have to have. In order to live, they must eat. And that's when I started thinking about it. And in 1975, I opened up a place called Hamburger City that is located in the jungle. And from there, starting, we went on to have 3 other restaurants, one in Marina del Rey, Aunt Kiz's Back Porch, which is now closed. And it's just been a very good life. All 5 of my kids have finished college, so I reached my goal. And recently, all 5 of my kids now own their own property. And so I've seen some very wonderful things happen to my family as a result of me being in the food business. And one of the things that I stress with my children is that we must stay together as a family. Even though we have arguments or disagree with each other or whatever the case might be, I want to keep my family unit strong. And I visit all of my kids, I talk to them if there's a little rift or something. And so far it has just worked wonders. I got 5 children, 3 boys and 2 girls. I have 3 grandchildren, and everybody is connected. Birthdays, holidays, and everything. And I'm very proud of the legacy that I'm leaving in terms of the strength and the love within my family.
So, what was it like opening up your first restaurant, Hamburger City?
It was like hell. I had never been in the restaurant business before, and I had to find somebody that could cook. I was going into the hamburger business. I had never done it except in the backyard. So I found a lady, Honey, I can't think, Honey Mack, M-A-C-K, that is already working in a hamburger restaurant, hamburger stand, I should say. And I convinced her to come over and be my first cook, away from my other job. So I was doing what they call a corporate rating, or
Poaching, headhunting.
Poaching, headhunting, all of that, all of the above was what I was doing. And so I got her to come and help me open up. And that's how the hamburger stand got started.
Cool. So what was it like? Was it busy? Was it popular?
400 square feet. That's about the size of this room. If you can imagine trying to do everything, well, it may have been a little bit larger than this, I don't know. But it was so tiny, you could hardly move around without bumping into somebody. And at first, it was so slow until I was threatening to close it down, and one of the ladies said, before you close it down, I'm going to quit. I can't stand this just standing around by myself. And then I started a campaign to get more customers in. Not, I guess, advertising, marketing something. I started out with hamburgers for 99 cents and French fries. And that's like what McDonald's started out with. And sure enough, the people started coming and coming, and I had a very good product. The hamburger was just excellent. And people loved it. And so it just got off the ground. I mean, it just got started. And the people kept coming. I had lines outside the place. And it was a teaching experience for my children to see their dad, who was a social worker at the time for Los Angeles County, start out with something that they had never seen him do. And he didn't know what he was doing himself. And then the people started coming, and it started growing and growing.
Nice. So, what would you say to someone starting a restaurant from your experience of the first one?
I would say today it is much, much more difficult than it was when I started. At that time, they had the health department that regulated restaurants, but the health department, wow, become an entrepreneur, which I decided I needed to do because I wasn't earning enough money to get my kids to college when they got college age. It was the most scary thing because I had to put my money on the line to finance the business. No loans, no help from anyone. I had to do it all with what the money I could scrape up or whatever the case might be. Never having been in business before was scary. All of the paperwork you have to go through with the health department, Los Angeles County, and everything was just formidable. And but I found out that you've got to stick with any project that you start out with, or else you will never reach a goal with that. So to become an entrepreneur, I decided upon the food business. And that means that I had to learn about the food business, or else get somebody to work with me or for me that already knew. And so I took the route of finding competent people, older, with experience, that I would simply go and get them to come work for me by offering them more money than they were already making. That's how I happened to have people working for me like Mrs. Honey Mac, Joy, who was from Brazil, and some other names that I cannot recall over all these years, that came in. They had worked in hamburger stands all around. You see, it's different now. You see McDonald's, Burger King, etc. now. But back in the day, in the black community, there was no white hamburger stands or anything like that. That was only black. And so we had a built-in group of customers because they didn't go anywhere that much. They never went outside of the community to eat. So it was a wonderful idea to open up a place in the community that was reasonable, cheap, good, and accessible to the public.
So in 1975, you started the first Hamburger City. What was it like? What was the greatest parts and the hardest parts of starting this restaurant?
The hardest part was trying to start a business you didn't know what to do. And so you were at the mercy of others that you had to surround yourself with. And either you become the head of the group that you're trying to put together, or else you're going to be a follower. So I had to gather as much information as possible about the hamburger business, about the restaurant business, and also find the people that I could bring in to work that knew had a lot of experience and were also agreeable to working for me. And I was able to put that team together.
So, what would you say to someone starting their first restaurant?
I don't know whether to someone starting their, what would I say to someone starting their first restaurant? Crazy. Out of touch with reality. The reason I'm saying that, I know it's harsh, but the restaurant business is the hardest work that you can do with the lowest amount of payback that you can expect. Long hours, bills that seem to never stop coming even though you don't make as much money. And and then the people that make up the workforce are not always agreeable. They are not always friendly to each other. You have people who miss work and other problems, alcoholism, and you have to throw all of that in the pot, as so it's going to keep you from being successful. And you got to find a way to stir this pot and get it all mixed up so that everybody is working together as a cohesive unit. That was hard. That was very, very difficult. But I made it with the strength of two older people, and then we filled in around them with younger people, and so I don't know, but it's got started. You know what I mean? I can't accurately describe it, but all I can say is that if a young person wants to be an entrepreneur and go into business, I think they should have their eyes wide open what they're stepping into and find more knowledge about it than I did as to what it's all about before you step out into it.
That's good advice.
I guess, I don't know.
No, I think so. So, what was it? Oh, just decline numbers. I can see. What was it like going from Hamburger City to your first soul food restaurant?
Wow, that's a good question.
Thank you.
A good question. What
So
was it like going from hamburgers to my first soul food restaurant? Well, I'd helped my mother cook soul food at home, which was just food, you know what I mean? Like, we didn't give it a name. Mama's gonna cook some soul food today. But I had kind of helped her when we lived on the farm with some cooking and everything. As I stated before, she was injured in an accident, and I had to step in and help out. So going from hamburgers to try to go to fried chicken, meatloaf, smothered pork chops, baked short ribs, collard greens, candied yams, macaroni and cheese, was something that in the black community it had to be good because everybody made it. Everybody was cooking it at home. Maybe not as good as others, but you had to have a superior product. And so I knew how, like tasting my mother's food, but it was supposed to come out looking like at her house. And I started using those same principles with the food that I was producing. And if I didn't like it, then I would try to get in there with the cooks and fix it up, doctor it up or whatever. And so going from the hamburger business to the soul food business was like starting all over again, but with a product that you were familiar with because your mother cooked it at home. But it was not cooked for an institution. It was not prepared in great big pans or whatever. She cooked in a little pot. like that on the stove, you know what I mean? And so that was a great adjustment.
Yeah. So it made you really happy to get into something from your childhood.
Yes, yes. To be able to make a living and support my family from something that my mother almost used to spank me to help her do because I didn't like cooking. I'd rather be out playing. Um, and to see it turn around and become, oh, I'd say $1 million a year business or whatever, was wonderful. It's ego building. It makes you feel good and make you believe in yourself.
Nice. So, tell us about the beginning of Aunt Kizzy's Back Porch. What was that like, getting that restaurant started? Were there other soul food restaurants in LA?
I think, other than starting in business, that was the most scariest risk that I took because we were opening up in basically an all-white community selling soul food. Nobody knew us. We didn't have a customer base, a customer following, because we were opening up at Marina del Rey, which was a long distance from the so-called black community. The rent was too high. Had to go in and do some work to remodel the building, and but I wanted to take a chance on stepping outside of the envelope in terms of what everybody in the black community was doing, and I thought that I could make it work. Well, it failed and I had to file bankruptcy. And I opened Aunt Kizzy's Back Porch in 1982, and we got the name from a southern source. I don't know where, but Kizzy was a popular southern name, and then we put the aunt on it, so that made it even more family oriented. And so in '82 we got started in Marina del Rey, in a very small area, about 1,200 square feet, I think. And then in 1987, because the business was so bad, I think it was 87, yeah. The business was so bad, we had to close down the small place. And we moved into a 2,000 square foot building, restaurant, in the same shopping center in the Marina. And there, we started out with cafeteria style serving. Most restaurants didn't do that. They would come up, a waitress take your order, you order fried chicken, mashed potatoes, or something like that, and they had to go and cook the fried chicken. The side dishes may have already been ready, and so you can imagine how long it would take. People ordering fried chicken and pork chops and this, that, and the other, and it took a long time. So what I did was I prepared like a cafeteria line and prepared all of those dishes so that people could pass by and get their food hot, fresh, and it was not the delay that people were used to experiencing when they ordered from a menu. And so that worked, and the lines were standing outside the door. So that Aunt Kizzy's Back Porch was born out of a new idea. Food service to many people. Food service to many people that was cafeteria streamlined. I don't know whether I'm saying it right or not, but do you get the idea of what I'm talking about?
Oh, absolutely. So was that new in at that time in the soul food industry?
New in the black community.
Got it.
It wasn't new in, big cafeterias. Yeah.
Got it. Cool. So after Aunt Kizzy's Back Porch, you started another bunch of restaurants. What was that like?
They all went by the wayside.
Okay.
I started once a breakfast place, you know, and I had a Mexican gentleman that was cooking for me, and he was doing breakfast burritos and everything, and that didn't work. Yes, I started. I started 2 or 3 restaurants, just never got open. And that happens in the restaurant business a lot. People start with a restaurant and run out of money. And so it's left, or either they open up for a short time. And as you know, the restaurant industry has the highest death rate of any business that is starting up. So, I don't know,
So that's really interesting because a lot of times, you know, people start a project and maybe it doesn't work and they just give up. Oh, you
Yeah.
know, forget it. I'm going to go get a job. But that wasn't your experience.
no, I was determined not to go get a job. I was driven to have something of my own. And that was the motivating factor behind me leaving Los Angeles County Civil Service job and going into the restaurant business was to make sure I got rid of that dependency upon a job.
Yeah. Cool.
Is this making any sense to you?
Oh no, this is great. Yeah, this is good life advice for anyone.
It is. It's good.
So let's talk about the food itself a little bit. What were the most popular dishes in your early soul food restaurants?
Fried chicken, fried pork chops. Go ahead.
Sorry, this thing, something on his desk. Is
Yeah,
like
there's
vibrating.
something that's
It might be
vibrating.
this.
Yeah, could be.
Okay, so we'll start. So just say the most popular dishes in my first soul food restaurants were.
The most popular dishes in my first soul food restaurant was fried chicken, by far the most popular. And then we did fried pork chops, and we had beef short ribs, baked chicken, of course, and did I mention pork chops?
Fried pork chops.
Yeah, fried pork chops. And we had a lot of fresh vegetables, like collard greens that were fresh, candied yams, we peeled them ourselves, string beans, and we had mashed potatoes. I can't think of it right now, but if I had a menu I could read it off to you, but it was just the food like your mothers cooked at home.
So the menus haven't changed that much from
Not
what
much.
your mother cooked at
No,
home.
not much at all. Over the years, we've added a little bit of extra things to the menu. But see, soul food has its beginning in the origin of the black people being transferred here from Africa and not having anything to eat very much except what the white slave masters gave them. In Africa, you could go out and you could go out and pick a banana, other fruit, or you could kill your meat. And so food was free in Africa. And then they brought us here to the United States, didn't give us enough to eat. But they did allow the women to go out into the brush and find whatever they could find to cook wild game or whatever. And without a recipe, because they didn't package away no seasoning with them when they were coming over here, they had to start out trying to figure out how to make this food taste good. And through experimentation, they had the food for the slaves and everything tasting so good with different herbs and spices that they selected in the woods and everything. until the food became so good, until the master would often come down and eat with the slaves, because the food was a little bit different from what they wanted up on the hill. Yeah. So it's interesting when you trace soul food, because it has no real recipe. It's kind of like the blues. You know, you do what you feel. Put an extra pinch of this in, you put a little extra line in the song, and it may never be exactly the same way two times. And also jazz is the same way. Jazz was written from out of the musicians who were very good black musicians, and white musicians started. The white musicians started following their music and adopting it, and so black musicians started out with jazz. So that it made it much more difficult to play. There were no two notes the same and everything like that. So it's a real history behind soul food, starting originally jazz and some things like that.
Yeah. So what do you think of making a cookbook for soul food? Because, you know, it does depend on how you're feeling and adding in some stuff. What do you think about that?
I think it's a good idea. There have been many written already that are on the market, and I think I had a collection of black cookbooks at one time. I probably have a few, but not like I used to. There are many of them out there, and to have a black cookbook has to be relevant to the point that people can identify with the food and everything before they buy the book, if they have some idea about it. If a restaurant has already been in existence for a long time, I think they have a better chance of promoting and marketing a cookbook than someone who is just starting out, or someone who has not had that experience and exposure. I feel that that person developing a cookbook has a better chance of it making it, because the market is flooded with them.
So how would a Doolin's family cookbook be different? You know, what do you think of that?
It wouldn't be different, except the information would be different. But in the majority of cookbooks that I have seen by black people, the format is to take pictures, historical pictures of the family, different events, and whatever the case might be, and then you surround that with some type of a story, something that describes what's going on at this family gathering and what did they eat. That's the way I see it.
So a lot of soul food is about gathering.
Oh, Lord, it's a family, it's the center of most family gatherings, eating.
So what would you want to share with your family, your grandkids, about, you know, their history, or yourself, some secrets to success in business, some funny stories? You know, we can just...
There's so many funny stories, but I can't think of one right now.
Of course.
But what would I like to share with my family and friends? And a cookbook. Is that what?
In a cookbook, or just on a video, anything?
Well, I go back to my basic statement. Everybody must eat one day. So therefore the world is your oyster, and all you have to do is come up with an excellent product like McDonald's did. But it's the marketing and advertising and the PR that you develop with other people who can spread the word about you that is so important. You can be one of the best cooks. There are so many excellent cooks, but who don't know how to market their product. They don't understand branding. They don't understand the fact that in order for you to make a lot of money, you got to contact and be in touch with the public who walks in your front door and spends money. That's how you make a lot of money, by a lot of people coming to you. And since these people don't know you, you got to get out and put the word out for them to know who you are and what's going on.
No problem.
But one thing about my family, what would I tell my kids or about if they wanted to go into business?
Yeah, or just being successful in life.
Being successful to me meant that I had to have a goal or some goals that were going to lift me higher than where I was at the present time. And so therefore, when I was working on the farm and everything like that, and after I was a social worker working for LA County, and I wasn't making enough money, I had to seek some higher goals of what else I was going to try. And if you don't already have that background knowledge, you have to get it. Or as I said before, find somebody that has it and get them to do for you. And I was driven. I had to be successful. I had to do that. And so I learned a lot of things along the way, just from experimenting with going in other restaurants, meeting other chefs and whatever I felt I could get a little bit of knowledge from and take it back to my little hamburger stand. And in terms of funny things that have happened along the way, I remember the restaurant caught on fire once. Elmer Diaz, who is he's a food commentator, was filming in my restaurant in Marina del Rey, and the oven got too hot and caught on fire. And while everybody was running, I was next door to Vons Market. I ran in Vons Market and got about 3 or 4 boxes of baking soda. Ran back in the restaurant and took the baking soda and started dousing it on the fire until the fire was out. And Elmer Diaz was saying he had not seen such dedication as that, because most people would have just called the fire department to have them to come and do something. But I saved it, and so he got that on tape somewhere. And it was many instances where, I remember one time, this is very funny, we had a lady came in the restaurant, and I was in the back, and one of my waiters came and said, Elizabeth Taylor is here. What should we do? I said, you're lying in the first place, but if Elizabeth Taylor's here, get her a seat, sit her down somewhere. And this guy, it was Elizabeth Taylor. And she had heard about my restaurant and came there to eat. And she was so nice, she stayed until after the restaurant was closed, gave everybody a $10 tip, everybody was happy. And I've met some of the greatest people. I have a picture with Vice President Gerald Ford. And there's some things that will open up to me in life that without me being an entrepreneur, I never would have had that opportunity. So.
That's really cool. Yeah. So one last thing, this was what we were talking about when Greg came in, going out into the community to meet customers, let them know what you were up to, just a little bit about what that's been like for you.
Well, how to get connected with the people around you, and in terms of them becoming customers. It means if you have a great outgoing personality, that is number one. You can always get the message out. But unless you have a way of getting it to people where they believe want to come and taste or whatever the case might be, it's so difficult. And back in the day, let me show you how much progress has been made. Back in the day, we used to print flyers up about the restaurant, and I'd have my kids out and my wife at night, and we would take these flyers and put them under the windshield wipers of cars, and then the next morning we'd be back waiting to see if they brought many customers. Now we go on Facebook and we do the other media programs or whatever it is for getting customers now. So we went from right in the community until now we have communication over the world.
I bet the going into the community worked really well.
Yes, it did. Especially if you printed a coupon that said hamburger and french fries for 99 cents. And I think we had a small Coke on there too. And then when you get there, you're surprised because it's a big size hamburger and everything, and it's giving away too much. It's so you don't believe it. And I took that from a few people and everything until, you know, people just started talking about it by word of mouth. Because I've never been big on advertising before. But I see now with the use of the computer and, you know, social media and all of this that there's definitely a place for it now.
There's so much distraction, so people need to be reminded.
Yes. Well,
Anything else?
no.
Isn't this enough? Well, thank you. This was great. I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah.
I learned a lot. Maybe if you could just say, like, looking right into the camera one more time, hi, I'm Adolf Dulin, the king of soul food. You know, this is my store, or something, just to
Oh yeah, that would be great.
introduce. And
This is my story.
yeah.
Hi, I'm Adolf Dulin. I'm called the King of Soul Food. And today I have been in my son's restaurant, Greg's Restaurant, Dulin Soul Food Catering, down on Crenshaw Boulevard. And I've just given some of the ideas and the thoughts that I have about opening businesses, etc. How tricky and hard the restaurant business is. And I've been sharing this information with two young ladies that are interviewing me. And I'm hoping that this will be spread out to other people who want to become entrepreneurs in the restaurant business, and that they can give me a call, or either my son Greg Dulin a call, and hopefully we'll be able to share some of our past knowledges with you.